Now, in his welcoming remarks earlier this morning, President Wooten talked about how agriculture has changed really in the last 20 to 30 years to meet the demands of a growing population. And like a lot of you here and a lot of our online viewers, I grew up on the farm, but things have changed drastically since then. Things are very different. Now, Chef Vivian Howard here, you have a very unique relationship with both consumers and local farmers dealing with your restaurant. Tell us first about the concept of your restaurant and really why the focus on farmers.
Well, Chef and the Farmer opened about 7.5 years ago, and our goal was to use as many local farmers as possible to procure our foodstuffs. And this was before the raging farm-to-table movement in our country. And really our goal was to improve our community and bring an emphasis on agriculture back to Eastern North Carolina. Many of the farmers we work with today are ex-tobacco farmers with small family farms, small plots of land, and we felt as if we could help move them into new forms of agriculture, produce, proteins, etc. But I do have an interesting viewpoint because I grew up on a tobacco farm and my parents transitioned into commodity hog farming. So I feel as if I can see both sides.
Do consumers want to know more about where their food comes from, their meat and all of that? More about what the farmers are like and where it comes from?
Absolutely. When we first opened, no one cared whether or not we bought our foodstuffs from local farmers. And in the past, I'd say 2 to 3 years, people are really interested in it. They want to know where it comes from. They want to know where they can find these farmers' products outside of our restaurant. There's far more traffic to our local farmers market, and so forth and so on. So.
Do you think it's changing perceptions among consumers? Because sometimes I think in the media, just what's out there, the perceptions about farmers can be wrong. Do you think what you're doing kind of helps change that perception, sort of seeing where the food comes from and more local, maybe hands-on approach, or people seeing farmers differently maybe, or seeing it more directly, I think, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think farmers are more in the spotlight nowadays. There's more interest in farming. I have a nephew who just started at NC State. He wants to be a farmer. When I was going through college, that was not a cool thing to do. And now I feel like it is. And so I think there's definitely a transition or a move toward an interest in agriculture and where our food comes from. Definitely.
Now, Dr. Brown, to you, farms have changed drastically. What does the average North Carolina farm look like today?
I don't know that you can really say we have an average farm in North Carolina. We have probably one of the most diverse agriculturals in the country. And you know, you can travel our state, and I get the honor and privilege of working with all these farmers, and you can find very small farmers doing local food, maybe doing part-time farmers. I would say maybe 47,000 out of the 50-some thousand farmers we have are part-time farmers. But then if you go to other parts of our state, you're going to find some of the largest farms in the country, particularly in terms of gross receipts, because we grow a lot of very management-intensive crops. We grow a lot of very high-value crops like fresh produce or livestock. So average is a difficult term to say in North Carolina because it's so diverse. Now, the average farm size is about 169 acres. But I don't know that that means a lot because of the diversity of our farms.
What are the big crops? What do most of the farms produce, would you say? You always hear sweet potatoes and...
Sweet potatoes has been one of our star crops that has really come on, particularly in eastern North Carolina. We're the largest producer of sweet potatoes. We export to Europe. If you talk with a sweet potato farmer, they're probably going to tell you a story about contact with a market in Europe where they're marketing their sweet potatoes. And part of that are the health aspects of sweet potatoes, and we were in a very good position. But some of our other crops, tobacco is still a very large crop in this state, probably $700 to $800 million. Other crops, cotton, we're I think 4th or 5th in cotton production. And of course you've heard the Bowstone talk about soybeans and corn that have made a comeback mainly because in our state because of the very large livestock industry. So we need more corn and soybeans than we have here because of all the hogs and poultry that we produce. So we're constantly bringing corn and soybeans in, but we're also constantly trying to figure out ways to improve our yields and the supply of those here. So.
Well, with the number of farms dropping less than, I think I've heard, 1% of the population farm, you'd think we're producing less food, but I mean, we've got to be producing more, obviously, as the population grows.
We are, our agricultural income receipts are about $10 to $11 billion, and they have grown in real terms over the past years. And that's basically because our farms have become much more efficient, much larger, but also even outside those traditional venues. You know, we heard from the local food venue this morning, and we're seeing a lot of growth even in that area, even though that's not a large percentage of our receipts. So.
What about the number of farms, in case you could maybe weigh in on this too, how many are, would you say, small family farms or these big food industry companies? What is sort of the relationship with those?
I mean, I can tell you a number that I know. The folks that we normally work with are the small scale and niche meat producers, and NCDA tracks those numbers, and there's approximately 650 registered meat handlers in North Carolina. So those are people who are producing livestock, turning them into meats, processing, distributing, warehousing them, going directly to a consumer or to a chef or to a food service buyer. So we've tracked that over time, and it's grown greatly.
The percentage of corporate farms that you hear about is very, very small. I would say it's less than, I'm trying to remember the last ag survey from USDA, it's less than 2%. But even when I go out and I work with a corporation, which many farms have incorporated their business, it's usually a situation where dad may be the CEO, mom may be the vice president, one of the kids may be the secretary. So it's that kind of family corporation. So by and large, except for maybe a very small percentage, all of our farms in North Carolina are pretty much family farms. So.
And I was surprised by that number because I get these visions too of these really large farms, and you think they are corporate owned and families don't have anything to do with it. But to find that 99% roughly of the farms in North Carolina are family owned, I mean, I think that it's definite ownership too. I think that people and the farmers feel over owning their own farm. Now, Tommy, your farm is primarily a livestock operation. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, we are what you probably would call a large diversified livestock operation. Over 2,000 sows, farrow to wean. We sell 940 16-pound, 21-day-old pigs every week. We have a poultry operation, 4 pullet houses, which raises replacement layers. We have 4 layer houses in peak production. You would be looking at 40,000 eggs per day. Those are for hatching eggs that will end up going to broiler houses, then would go into the food supply. Our cattle operation, around 350 to 400 brood cow or mama cow, cow-calf. And we market those primarily in tractor-trailer truckload lots over tele-auction, and majority of them would go out to the feedlots in the Midwest.
And you're a family-owned farm?
Yes, we are incorporated, but very much a family-owned farm run by family. We do have employees, but it is very much a family-owned and operated run farm.
How have the practices changed on your farm to do something on that scale? Obviously, things have changed. They must have changed greatly in the last.
They have changed greatly, and a lot of those changes are regulations that have come about in the last 15 years. Didn't necessarily change the way we managed and operated things. We always tried to do things best management practices, tried to be very environmentally friendly, care of the animals, tried to take the best care we possibly could. Nowadays, there's much more record keeping. The regulations, we're visited twice annually by water quality to make sure we're taking care of the water, sound management, that we're not doing anything that would harm the environment, which we never did before. But it's just now that the regulations have changed and you're being scrutinized a whole lot harder.
Now, Casey, you raise livestock on your farm as well. Tell us a little bit about how you run your farm and raise your animals.
My wife and I have about a 60-acre diversified farm operation. We've done everything over the last 10 years, from produce to cut flowers to greenhouse crops and the 3 major meat species, so beef, pork, and chicken. And we're very much market driven. This is something that Alex brought up. On a farm that size, we do we find our niche the customers that want to support us and support our products, and then we do what they want us to do. And so what that's meant for us over the years is that we're constantly honing and redefining what it is that the farm is producing, what can make money for us at that scale, what hopefully can support our farm family. And we have a direct line of communication with those consumers, so that's not the hardest part of it, figuring out what to do and how to do it. So we raise all of our take the hogs for instance, what we call a pasture-based system. So we move them every 2 or 3 weeks to try to protect our natural resources as well as possible, and to give the hogs an environment in which we think that allows them to express their pigginess, as someone has said before. And that's just that's the niche that we're in. That's kind of the way that we want to see them grown. So there's a lot of challenges in agriculture production, and there's a lot of challenges when you're a very, very small business. And those two things together, I think we're fortunate in North Carolina that we have so many things going for us, all of agriculture, that we have the climate that we have, and we have support from the state, we have support from the nonprofits and the land-grant universities. The consumers in this room have probably the most choices of where you decide to get your food than just about anybody in the world, and you should be grateful for that, and that you're being able to have this conversation in front of you as well.
Now, you're a family-owned farm. Has it been in your family for generations? Are you all the first? Or?
No, we're new farmers. By USDA's definition, we're about 9 3/4 years into it, so we're still new farmers, under 10 years. And I didn't grow up on a farm. Grew up in the country with a big garden, and
That's
this
a
was
big
something.
jump.
Yeah, it's a big jump. It's a big jump, and we've always held down off-farm full-time jobs in order to help make that work. And so we actually approached agriculture and approached getting into farming from a kind of a different aspect than growing up on a farm and and inheriting it. More from I want to know where my food comes from, and I want to be involved in the process of it, and I want to provide that to other people. So.
And do you sell to, like Vivian? I mean, would you sell to, or are you?
We're a long ways away. We just met today for the first
you're
time.
not
But as
local.
an example, I'll get your number. No, as an example, yeah, probably, very likely. We sell to chefs in on the Asheville and Black Mountain area, and directly to consumers. We're opening a family-owned butcher shop that'll be in conjunction with our farm here in a few weeks to try to, solve some of the problems that we see, with small-scale farming. So. It's a moving target, and there's a lot of ways of doing it. There's no black and whites in this issue.
Well, there's certainly a lot that's being grown in North Carolina. We used to be known so much for tobacco, but is it more livestock now, or what is the largest commodity, would you say?
Livestock makes up about 2/3 of our cash farm receipts in North Carolina, and hogs and poultry are the two biggest contributors to that. We're second in the nation in terms of hog production, or pork, and I think we're about fourth in the nation in terms of broilers or chickens, and we're usually second in turkeys. So livestock is a very, very big part of our farm economy here in North Carolina.